Some say he's a technical whiz. Some say he was born in Cornwall. While some say that he's on a journey. It's The Journey. And here's your host, David Hackett.
Hi everyone, another journey. This time we're joining Jim Marshall. Jim Marshall is, and this is what the note says, Jim Marshall is a polymathic intellectual who has devoted over 50,000 hours to the study and practice of multiple dimensions of human potential and development. He received a classical education as an honor student at a Jesuit Military Prep School, was accepted into engineering school while still a junior at prep school, so that's quite a young age, and Jim most probably will talk about that himself, and attended college on academic scholarship. He graduated college with a Bachelor of Science, and I believe that's pronounced as laude, while still an undergraduate. He began the study of alternative arts and sciences, which today would be described as transformational and holistic. Eventually, he became a professional practitioner, and after 28 years of formal education, had a long career as a human development engineer. Jim's integrated the best aspects of the most advanced techniques on the planet and expanded their limits by his own research and discovery. He successfully treated and trained hundreds of clients over a 40-year career and is the inventor of Septemics, I believe that is, and
Septemics,
and several consciousness expanding systems. His areas of expertise include psychology, philosophy, theology, parapsychology, science, engineering, mathematics, law, literature, history, music, organization, metaphysics, military science, political science, physical culture, and education. That's one big resume. Welcome to the journey, Jim.
Thanks, David.
So, as I was saying before the introductions and before I read about you, let's start at the very, very beginning when Jim was young Jim. How did it start for you there?
Well, I was a born polymath, meaning I have no memory of a time when I was not intensely interested in learning everything that's taught in every university. I was shocked at the age of 10 to find out that some kids didn't like school.
True. I agree to that. And
that was a completely foreign concept to me. I loved school. I went to school for 28 years. And I've been involved in education one way or another since the age of 3, continuously.
And would you say the subjects of school always interested you because everyone, like it said, you enjoyed many subjects? Was there one that particularly stood out for you at the age of 3?
No, really, I am an insatiably curious person. I'm naturally inquisitive. So I did not really think of myself as a polymath until late in life, when I suddenly turned around and realized that I had mastered several dozen different subjects. But I was just a person who wanted to know, wanted to learn. And really, while most other people were bowling, shooting pool, going to picnics, watching TV, playing video games, I was studying, meditating, and researching.
So that was from the early age, and it said 3 years old. And did it get progressively better, or did it get easier? Because some people would say we are at that age to concept. Was it that level where you understood it from the early age, so it's easy to follow?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Basically, the question is, did you feel like it was easier for you learning at a young age all the subjects you wanted to learn?
Well, in general, I always enjoyed learning. Now, of course, there were specific times when I had some difficulty, and that was really the fault of the teachers, because there are a lot of lousy teachers. A lot of people who really don't know how to teach, even they know their subject. There's a difference between knowing your subject and knowing how to teach.
Yeah.
But I also had some very, very good teachers. Frankly, in my mind, I think of Socrates, Plato, excuse me, Aristotle, Pythagoras, Euclid, Cicero, Seneca, Aquinas as my teachers. They and hundreds of other people.
Yeah.
I think of them as my teachers. And I'm very grateful to the work that they did, which I was able to benefit from.
Yeah. And would you say the understanding of those particular people made you grow in strength and understanding?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think our entire education system is badly formed. The whole idea of graduate school is specialization. They force you into a specialization. And that's good if you want to become an expert in one field, and it's good if you want to make a living. But in terms of enlightenment and broadening the mind, broadening your whole personality, it's really much better to have a broad education and to study deeply across many axes of learning.
So, Jim, tell us about you.
Okay, well, I am the discoverer of hitherto unknown natural phenomena, which greatly aid in the understanding of people, from which I invented a revolutionary practical philosophic system and published it in the book Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomena. 27 years of direct observation has shown that this book would dramatically improve the life of anyone who takes advantage of it. Septemics is a philosophical science based on the fact that many phenomena related to human beings occur in a sequence of 7 levels. Literally, the word septemics means of or pertaining to 7. Septemics comprises a collection of scales or sequences, each of which breaks down various human phenomena into a hierarchy of 7 steps. There are 35 such scales which span the spectrum of human experience, by which I mean any situation in the life of any person can successfully be analyzed using one or more of these scales.
So, how long has this been a subject for close to you as a person?
Well, I started discovering the septemic phenomena when I was early in my adult career. I should probably just tell you the story about how I found it, because that will explain a lot.
Yeah.
By the time I had my bachelor's degree, I realized that although I was an engineer, I did not want to engineer anything physical, such as electrons or airfoils or motors or anything like that. I wanted to engineer the human psyche, because that is the area in which we are failing miserably. So, to make a long story short, I had a long career as a human development engineer, working one-on-one with hundreds of people over many thousands of hours, helping them to advance their lives. Now, while I was doing this, I started to observe that my clients were improving in ways that were predictable to me. I never told this to anyone, but I made notes. And as the years went by, I started to realize that my clients were actually going up scales. In other words, a particular client would be at a particular level which I would recognize. And then as a result of the session, he would go up to the next higher level, which I would also recognize. Now, again, I never told this to anyone, but I just observed this and made notes. And this happened thousands and thousands of times over my career. So by about 1995, I had developed all of these scales, about 32 scales of varying lengths. Now, at that point, I had one scale in particular that I absolutely knew from experience was correct. It had 6 levels, but in 95, I realized it had a 7th level. And when I inserted the 7th level into the 6th level scale, it manifested mathematically. That was actually the beginning of Septemics. Anything that has mathematics embedded in it is natural law. So I realized that this scale was natural law, in the same way that the Pythagorean theorem is natural law, or the 3 laws of motion are natural law. Now, when the scale went to 7 levels, it went from being a line, meaning a scale, to a plane, meaning all these implications jumped out at me from the scale. So I realized I was onto something big. So then, being an engineer, I asked myself, I wonder how many of these other scales are actually 7-level scales that hadn't been developed all the way, because I wasn't developing anything. I was just helping my clients and making notes. So, knowing what I was looking for, I then inspected all these other scales. And as a result of that, I was able to develop each of them into a 7-level scale. And as each scale went to 7 levels, it manifested mathematically. So in a matter of months, I had about 32 7-level scales, and I realized I had discovered a new subject. And that I could go from helping people by the hundreds, which was what I had been doing with my individual clients, to helping people by the millions by putting this data in a book and publishing it. So I knew I had to write a book based on this information. The first version of the book was completed in December of 95, and I gave it to colleagues of mine, all of whom had graduate degrees in varying subjects, and they all loved it. That told me that this was exactly what I thought it was, which was a legitimate subject that I had stumbled upon. So I then became devoted to creating this subject and writing it in a book in a way that the average person would make sense of. So you see, first I had to discover the phenomena, which was largely done by 95, although I did discover 3 more scales as I was writing the book. Then I had to take that data and I had to use it to construct a workable philosophic system. That took about 20 years, starting from 95. And then I had to express it in a way that would make sense to the average reader. And that was a lot of work. There were many rewrites. There were many modifications, making it clearer. And with each rewrite, I would present it to clients or colleagues or friends of mine, and I would get feedback. And then I would modify it further. And after about 25 years, I realized, okay, I'm not going to live forever. I need to publish this. So I published it 2 years ago. And I have to say, no one who has ever read this book has had a negative response. No one has ever said to me, I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. This is garbage or anything like that. Everybody, when they read this book, they say, okay, I see this. This makes sense. This is helpful. And just to give you some context, the way a person will experience this book is, it's like you put on eyeglasses and looked at yourself in the mirror. You see yourself much better through these 35 scales. Now, each of these scales is expressed in what you might call a table or a spreadsheet, because there's a lot of data that goes with each one of these scales. And you have to realize that each of these 35 scales is unique. You cannot infer anything about scale A from studying scale B. This is good because between them, they span the spectrum of human experience.
Yeah.
So if you like, I can read you the names of the 35 scales,
and
they will tell your readers what subject material we're talking about here.
Okay, that's fine.
And you'll see that I have really covered the subject of human phenomena.
Okay.
These are the individual scales. The scale of basic purposes, the scale of personal influence, the scale of choice, the scale of permeation, the scale of thought, the scale of identity, the scale of evaluation. the scale of motivation, the scale of control, the scale of stopping, the scale of scholarship, the scale of literacy, the scale of human ability, the scale of memory, the scale of spiritual identity, the scale of mental deletion, the scale of aberration, the scale of physical fitness, the scale of justification, the scale of belief, the scale of equanimity, the scale of attack, the scale of conflict, and the scale of reaction. And these are the group scales: the scale of relationships, the scale of life spheres, the scale of government, the scale of civilization, the scale of survival, the scale of management, the scale of exchange, the scale of communication, the scale of allegiance, the scale of safety, and the scale of politics. Each one of these scales by itself has the potential to dramatically improve someone's life. Now, some people will find particular scales of more relevance to them or to their situation than others. And that's where you should start. In other words, the way to help somebody with this is help a person resolve a specific situation by showing him a specific scale, helping him find his level on that scale, and now helping him move up one level. If you do that, you will make a friend, and the person will be able to improve his life. So you can use it to find your own level on any one of these scales, but also you can use it to find another person's level. And in either case, when the person's level is found, he can definitely improve that level by moving up to the next higher level. And that solves the gradient problem. I have done the heavy lifting by giving you the gradients. In other words, for any one of these 35 subjects, there are 7 levels. And every human being is at some level on every scale. So you can take advantage of this information by finding your level and moving yourself up one level. Or you can use it to help others, or simply to understand others. For example, I know the basic purpose of every president of the United States, going back as far as Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and many of the presidents prior to Roosevelt, who I studied, such as Lincoln, Jefferson, and Washington. Now, there's nothing more important to understand about a person than the person's basic purpose. Of course, everyone has thousands of purposes, but every person has one of 7 basic purposes. Now, when you find your level, I'm not saying you should tell other people what it is. You may not want to do that. And I'm definitely telling you, don't divulge the level of any other person on any scale. Rather, help the person find it himself. Because if he does that, he will have a realization which will help the situation just by finding the level. And then when he knows the level, you can help him to move up one level, and he will be an improved person. So that's basically how this works.
So as I understand it, it's like steps in those levels, and there's 7 of them. And you start off, say, for example, number 2, so you want to progress to number 3. Does anyone potentially get to the top level?
Well, first of all, the top level is 1 and the lowest level is 7. So you want to move up the scale. Yeah. So if you're at 5, you want to go to 4.
Yeah.
Right?
So, yes. So the question is, do people improve to get to the top level? Or is it just
yes,
one?
That's the whole idea. I mean, I have been doing that for myself my entire adult life. Long before I knew about Septemics, I had, as I said earlier, I had observed these scales, and I started moving myself up these scales. And this has been a lifelong process. And as you move yourself up the scales, you improve. You become smarter, wiser, more responsible, more insightful, and so forth. Because each one of these scales is a benefit to the person. Whatever scale you're working on, moving yourself up helps you to improve yourself. Or if you're helping another person, helps to improve that person.
Yeah. So where is your book available for the public to read? Is it anywhere to be bought?
Oh, sure. It's easy to find. if you were to simply put into a search engine the word Septemics, Septemics, you'll get hundreds of responses, including all the people who are selling the book, such as Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. I invite your viewers to my website, which is septemics.com. And there you can see what many readers have said about it, what many journalists have written about it, what the reviews are, and you can read sections of the book itself, which are on the website. So if you do that, you'll get an idea what this is about, and then you can decide if you want to buy the book.
And going forward, would you encourage people to go to your website to get the book, to understand themselves, and then reach out to people and do what you said? Because you said about helping individuals as well as yourself. Would you encourage, say, for example, if it's me, say if it was me encouraging, say, for example, a person called Shelby, I encourage Shelby to be better in themselves, for example.
Right.
Then
well,
Shelby...
let me give you an example, right?
Yeah.
There's a scale of scholarship. Most people don't know there are 7 levels of scholarship. I'm pretty sure I discovered that scale, and nobody else really knows about it unless they've read the book. Now, I state with specificity in that chapter how to make someone a better scholar. So let's say most people have children, and most children have trouble in school.
Yeah.
So a parent can say he's got a 12-year-old child. He can say to the son, okay, look, let me help you. Read this glossary. So you have him read the glossary before the chapter. Then you say, look at this scale of scholarship. And he'll read it. And I guarantee you, in a matter of seconds, he'll say something like, well, I can see that I'm probably at level 4 or 5. See, he's already thrown out 5 of the levels. Then you could say to him, okay, let's have you read the text and narrow it down. So he'll read the text, and then he'll come back to it and say, well, I can see I'm at level 5. Then you say, great, let's help you move up to level 4. You see, and the parent can work with the kid using the chapter, and he can make him a better scholar. So without hiring a tutor, without going anywhere, the parent can help the kid to be a better student. And most parents would want to do that. That's just an example. If you take that example and expand it 1 billion times in every direction, you get how the book works.
Yeah. So, because obviously we're covering, and it says about you doing several subjects, you study of alternative arts sciences, and when it goes into transformation, and then it goes into transformation and holistic practices, and you then understood psychology, philosophical ideas, theological. Would you say that's what made you a better person in those subjects, because of these 7 steps?
Well, certainly my lifelong pursuit of polymathy has helped me immensely. I've been meditating my entire adult life, and all of this has fueled my meditation as far as the meditation makes my mind clearer.
Yeah.
And as a result of this mental clarity, I'm better able to understand more subjects. And as I understand more subjects, my grasp of human society and the human condition has improved. So my understanding of myself has improved immensely, and my understanding of others has improved immensely. So, for example, I can meet somebody, and in 15 seconds, I can find that person. I can observe that that person is at a certain level on a certain scale. That tells me something about that person, how to deal with that person, how to understand that person, how to help that person. And really, that's what I was doing with my clients for all those decades. The person would come in to me, he would tell me his situation, and I would have insight into the person. And I would not tell him anything, but I would get him to himself find his own answer. And this book really facilitates that. It helps you to unravel whatever you're stuck in. So let's say a guy has relationship problems, right? You can show him the scale of relationships. Well, just the fact that there are 7 levels of relationships is itself a revolutionary idea. And he can find where he is on that scale, and he can find where his mate is on that scale. Or you can show him the scale of sexuality. I can guarantee you, if you are not compatible with somebody on that scale, you are not going to have a successful romantic relationship. No matter how smart or nice you are, you have to be compatible. You don't have to be at the same level, but you have to be at a compatible level. Or you can show them the scale of allegiance. Whenever relationships deteriorate, it's always because allegiance has deteriorated. So the guy's going out with a girl, he cheats on her by going out with somebody else. That's an obvious lowering of allegiance. His allegiance to her has deteriorated. So he can find what level he has fallen down to and bring himself back up, thereby repairing the relationship. So you can use this to understand others and to understand yourself. For example, there's a scale of motivation. So you can ask yourself, what is my motivation toward my mother? What is my motivation toward my son? What is my motivation toward my business partner? And by finding those, it clarifies your relationship. And you can also ask, what is my father's motivation toward me? What is my business associate's relation toward me? What is the motivation of this girl I'm going out with? You see? And when you understand the person's motivation, that alone tells you a lot about the person. So by knowing your own motivation toward the person and knowing that person's motivation toward you, you can really understand your relationship just from that one scale alone. Now, I'm not suggesting you limit it to that one scale because you have 35 scales here to use. Most of the time, when there's a situation or a problem or a dilemma, there are multiple scales which can help you to unravel that situation. Sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different scales that you can use, analyze the situation relative to that scale. And that will help you to resolve the situation. And when you know where you are in that scale, you can move up a level. And the same thing with another person. When you find where another person it is, I'm not saying you should tell them what level they're on, although you may want to help them find it themselves. But just knowing what level they're at tells you a lot. For example, let's say a guy's dating a girl, right? And he's thinking about marrying her. He should probably look into motivation. What is my motivation toward this girl? And what is her motivation toward me? So, for example, if her motivation toward me is level 1, which is caritas, or in Greek it's called agape, we would say charity, okay? That's a level of love. That's the highest motivation. That's somebody you want to marry. But if her motivation toward you is because you own a yacht and a Learjet and drive a Maserati, that's not a good motivation, okay? You might not want to date that person because they have a low motivation toward you. So, see, that could be the difference between getting married and breaking up the relationship. Either way, you're better off because you know the truth. And that's what this book is about. It helps you to find the truth about yourself and about others.
Okay, so to summarize, what would you say to the listeners, viewers now for the future, for themselves?
Well, I would say go to my website and see the data there. And if you do, if you're interested in improving yourself, you'll probably want to buy the book because it's not expensive. Once you have the book, you can use it to help yourself and people around you. And you don't need anything else. You don't need to join a club. You don't need to pay any money. The book is designed to help you. In other words, I designed these 35 scales to wrap around the reader. People get it. When they look at these scales, they get it as, yes, I see, this makes sense. And they use it to find their own levels and other people's levels. It's very enlightening. And because of its enlightening, it's empowering. It helps you to understand better your own life and other people. So that's my recommendation. Get the book and use it. That's what it's for use.
Jim Marshall, thank you for sharing your journey. I'll make sure I put the links to your website in the description below or wherever it is. I'm saying below because I'm just imagining where it is now. But thank you for being part of the journey today.
Thank you, David. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
That was The Journey, hosted by Wise Words Imaging, hosted by David Hackett. Be sure to like, subscribe and listen to another journey coming soon.